दम हमदम अली अली सोफिए बा सफा मनम दम हमदम अली अली सोफिए बा सफा मनम दम हमदम अली अली आशिक़ मुर्तज़ा मनम दम हमदम अली अली मुतरिब खुशनवा मनम दम हमदम अली अली मुतरिब खुशनवा मनम दम हमदम अली अली
Ya Alimadat, welcome, bienvenue, and Salgirah Mubarak. I am Ziana Vasaya, and I am so excited to join you this evening as we mark the 85th birthday of our beloved Mawlana Hazar Imam. Tonight, we will go on an exciting journey looking over the life of Mawlana Hazar Imam. Now, 85 years is a long time, and the world has changed a lot since 1936, so let's embark on a short retrospective of Mawlana Hazar Imam's life and express gratitude for the light of Imamat to guide us through all the changes our world has and continues to experience. The year is 1936. 2 days ago, Edward VIII has abdicated the throne, and CBC Radio is celebrating its first month of broadcast. In the rest of the world, Italy was engaged in an expansionist campaign against Ethiopia. The League of Nations would soon welcome Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah as its next president. This is the world in which Mawlana Hazar Imam was born. It is a world in which radio and the telephone were in the early stages of becoming widespread. Television had just recently been invented, and great economic and political crises would soon culminate in a Second World War. As a young boy, Mawlana Hazar Imam, along with his brother Prince Amin, spent many memorable years in Nairobi.
When I speak of places that have played a major role in my life, no place comes to mind more quickly than Kenya. My ties here go back to my Toto days. How can I ever forget our childhood house on Caledonian Road, now named the Dennis Pritt Road, and the mega rhubarb that I grew up the rainwater drain, or driving down the garden steps in the late Sir Ibu's car. And how can I forget my brother's despair when his pet bantam chickens were eaten one night by a visiting leopard? Little did I suspect that the next night my rabbits would suffer the same fate.
As the war ended in 1945, Hazar Imam assumed his formal education at Institut La Rosée, one of the oldest boarding schools in Switzerland. While at La Rosée, Mawlana Hazar Imam excelled in his studies as well as in athletics, leading the La Rose rowing team to the Swiss National Championships in 1951. His experiences there left him with lifelong lessons. Throughout his time in school, the world experiences rapid change. In 1947, a decades-long non-violent protest culminates in the end of almost 200 years of British rule. In 1951, the first business computer, UNIVAC 1, is commissioned at the United States Census Bureau. And in 1952, Queen Elizabeth assumes the throne after the death of her father, King George VI. In 1957, Mawlana Hazar Imam becomes the Imam of the time when his grandfather, Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah, peace be upon him, passes away.
Ya likho ba mija la sazinata kar ke farsha bichai gali an baithe haye takta ke upar shah karim shah wali Mubarak hove.
In Takhnashini ceremonies across Asia and East Africa, Mawlana Hazar Imam reminds the Jamaat of the necessity of maintaining a balance between din and dunya, faith and world, as being inextricably linked.
The years of development and change which lie ahead are certain to throw up many new problems. We should not be afraid of these. You will surely surmount them if you stand by your faith and meet your difficulties in the spirit of humility and tolerance which our religion demands of us. This is especially important for the younger generations who will have to carry the future on their shoulders. Only the faith of your fathers can sustain you and enable you to live in peace here in this world and in the next.
Following an 18-month pause to assume the role and responsibilities of Imam, Mawlana Hazar Imam returns to Harvard to complete his undergraduate degree in Islamic history while also managing Imamat affairs, reflecting the great importance he would place on education for many decades to come. The world in which Mawlana Hazar Imam assumes the role of Imam is fraught with political and social instability, as well as unprecedented technological advancement. Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth, is launched by the Soviet Union in October 1957, accelerating the arms race and the Cold War. In 1958, Pan American Airlines initiates its first transatlantic flight from New York to Paris, launching the jet age and making it possible in the years ahead for the Imam of the time to visit his Jamaat around the world in ways that were never before possible. Countries in Asia and Africa engaged in struggles for independence. In the United States, the civil rights movement gains momentum with the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, as well as determination by a young Rosa Parks to keep her seat on a bus in Alabama. The Jamaat in Central Asia is particularly affected by Soviet rule, as the Tajik Jamaat is isolated from the Imamat and other Jamaats in the region. From the very beginning, Mawlana Hazar Imam built upon the work of his late grandfather by consolidating and establishing new, contemporary institutions to improve the quality of life of his murids and the communities in which they live. In 1967, he established the Aga Khan Foundation, the first agency of what would become the Aga Khan Development Network. This was a significant step towards enhancing synergy among the various development activities of the Imamat under a single institutional structure. Throughout, the work of the Imamat was supported by the Jamaat, who offered their resources, both material and of time and knowledge. In his personal life, Mawlana Hazar Imam took over the operations of Aga Khan Studs in 1960. Between 1967 and 1977, Mawlana Hazar Imam continues to navigate the Jamaat through times of change and crisis. Political situations in Asia and Africa that significantly affected the Jamaat include Bangladesh gaining independence from Pakistan and the expulsion of all Asians from Uganda, including thousands of Ismailis. Many of these refugees, as well as those who feared instability throughout East Africa, migrated to North America and Europe with significant assistance and guidance from Mawlana Hazar Imam. For the first time in history, large communities of Ismailis were permanently settled in the Western world. Throughout this period, Mawlana Hazar Imam continues to establish institutions to improve quality of life in Africa and Asia, laid the foundation of the Aga Khan Medical College and Hospital in Karachi, and announced the creation of the Aga Khan Award for Architecture. These development activities of the Imam have always been underpinned by the Islamic ethic of caring for those in greatest need in society. Mawlana Hazar Imam has also consistently emphasized the importance of education and the intellect, Allah's greatest gift to humankind. In 1975, the decision was made to establish a significant institution for the study of the Jamaat's heritage and for improving the quality of religious education for the Jamaat. The Institute of Ismaili Studies was opened in London in 1977 and continues to make important academic and educational contributions, including curriculum development and the training of wa'izin and professional religious education teachers. This decade also saw the births of three of Mawlana Hazar Imam's children, Princess Zara, Prince Rahim, and Prince Hussein, who were all born in Geneva, Switzerland. He also continued to make several visits, gracing the Jamaats in East Africa, Pakistan, the UK, India, and France with didars. In his guidance, he emphasized not only worldly matters, but also the importance of faith, regularity in prayer, and living by the ethics of Islam. This was especially important considering the scientific and technological developments which would emerge in the following years. In an interview with a British network, Mawlana Hazar Imam articulated the role of the Imam and addressed common misperceptions of it both within and outside the Ummah.
Your Highness, if a complete stranger who had no idea who you were or what you were came up to you and said, "What do you do for a living?" what would be your reply?
I would say that my role is I'm the Imam, the hereditary Imam of a Shia Muslim community, an international Shia Muslim community.
And that your influence in the world is?
I'm responsible for guiding the interpretation of the faith for the Ismaili Muslims and advising them on issues of everyday life that they bring to me or that the Imamate as an institution has to decide upon.
May we for a moment go back in time to your boyhood in Kenya. What memories do you have of those days?
Well, I was, of course, very young, and it was during the war. But I remember the beauty of Kenya as a country. I remember Nairobi as being a town rather than a city, with all that represented in terms of the sort of things that amuse a child, the possibility of seeing wildlife over the garden wall and this sort of thing. Some of my early education, which was to say the least, like a lot of children, painful.
Were you a happy child?
Yes, I think so, although obviously during the war I didn't see my parents a great deal.
Was there any thought ever in your mind at that time that one day you might possibly become the Aga Khan?
Absolutely not.
It didn't even cross your mind for a second. How well did you know your grandfather at that time when you were a boy? He played an important part in your young life.
Yes, he did. He probably had one of the most widespread and inquiring intellects of any person I've ever met. And he was a person who, after an hour with him, you were completely drained of all information that you could give him. He asked an enormous number of questions on an enormous number of subjects. And in that sense, this sort of intellectual stimulus which he provoked and which he was the center of was very, very exciting indeed.
But he also gave advice.
Oh yes, and as the head of the family he was fairly clear that when he gave advice it was to be respected.
In Mawlana Hazar Imam's third decade of Imamat, starting in 1977, the advancement of significant technological milestones continues with the birth of the first test tube baby, the sale of the first Apple Macintosh computer, and the first permanent artificial heart implant on a human. In global politics, Deng Xiaoping becomes the leader of the People's Republic of China, and Mikhail Gorbachev takes over as General Secretary of the Soviet Communist Party. In Canada, in 1978, the Canadian Jamaat is blessed with its first visit by Mawlana Hazar Imam.
वो शाम मुझे याद आए जिस शाम को मौला आए मैं गाता रहा लहराता रहा अनमोल खुशी के तराने वो शाम मुझे याद आए वो कैसी सजी थी मौला की मस्ती हर दिल में थी वो तख्त पे आकर बैठे सब आंखें खुशी से छलकने लगी वो हंसते रहे वो लुटाते रहे अनमोल रूहानी खजाने वो शाम मुझे याद आए.
We take pride in being an organized community. This characteristic has served us well in Canada, where the great majority living here today arrived just 6 years ago, having been expelled from Uganda almost overnight by President Idi Amin.
In 1979, two major political events affected members of the Jamaat. The Iranian Revolution saw the regime of the Shah overthrown, while the Soviet army invaded Afghanistan. In September 1979, Mawlana Hazar Imam attends the foundation ceremony of the Ismaili Center in London and speaks of the center as a symbol of a growing understanding of Islam. This would be the first in a global network of Ismaili centers.
This building and the prominence of the place it has been given indicate the seriousness and the respect the West is beginning to accord Muslim civilization, of which the Ismaili community, though relatively small, is fully representative. May this understanding, so important for the future of the world, progress and flourish.
A year later, Mawlana Hazar Imam initiates the construction of the Aga Khan Hospital and Medical University in Karachi, the beginning of what was to become an international university with campuses in Asia, Africa, and Europe. On 11th July 1982, Jamaati leaders pay homage to Mawlana Hazar Imam at Eglamo to mark the auspicious occasion of the Silver Jubilee of Hazar Imam's accession to the throne of Imamat. It is a time of celebration for the global Jamaat.
Let us now look to the horizon of the future. We must continue to build on solid foundations. Let us strengthen today's fabric of institutions and programs so as to have them contribute the full impact of their potential on the quality of life of the Jamaat. Let us address wisely those difficult problems which clearly await and call for resolution, such as the adaptation of the Jamaats, and more particularly their second and third generations, to living in the Western world. Let us think clearly how these spiritual children can establish soundly the foundations of a good and proper life, and then extend their hand of support to their brothers and sisters in less privileged parts of the world.
During the Silver Jubilee year, Mawlana Hazar Imam blesses a number of Jamaats with Didar. He speaks of the importance of faith, of education, meritocracy, and the role of the intellect. Hazar Imam attends the foundation ceremony of the Ismaili Center, Vancouver, and receives the charter of the Aga Khan University from the President of Pakistan.
During the Jubilee year, many new projects will be launched which will impact the material quality of the life of Ismailis, as indeed of many others. This is the first project to be launched during this Jubilee year, and it is very important that it is a place of worship. The significance of this ceremony is further enhanced by the fact that this is the first Jamaat Khana to be built in North America. It is my hope that it will become a symbol of a growing understanding in the West of the real meaning of Islam.
The Ismaili Center London is officially opened in April 1985 and the Ismaili Center Vancouver in August 1985. Each respectively by the Prime Ministers of the time.
Our philosophy, our values are reflected in this architecture. A building such as this is a compliment to Vancouver, to our nation, and to our civilization. And today, when I tell the leadership of the community, and you, sir, that today we gather together to celebrate the opening of a building marked by subtlety and grace, and we do so with pride and affection.
Today, the 6 centers around the world provide spaces for the Jamaat's search for spiritual enlightenment and help to build partnerships in the communities in which the Jamaat lives. On his 50th birthday, 13th December 1986, Mawlana Hazar Imam marks a significant moment in the Jamaat's modern history as he ordains the first global Ismaili constitution. This would go on to become an important platform upon which the global institutional structure is built. One that was particularly timely given the imminent collapse of the Soviet Union and the period of globalization which would soon follow. The decade of Imamat, beginning in 1987, saw a tidal shift in international relations with the fall of the Berlin Wall, the so-called Iron Curtain, and the thawing of the Cold War. The withdrawal of the Soviet Army in 1989 put into motion a series of events that was to lead to civil war, a conflict that was to have far-reaching and global consequences. The speed and scope of Mawlana Hazar Imam's tireless efforts to advance the spiritual and material progress of the Jamaat continued to intensify. Much of the Imam's focus turned to Central Asia, which was undergoing significant change. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, national entities including Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan emerged as independent nation-states. The opening up of Central Asia enabled the Imamat to come into open contact with the Jamaats of Central Asia for the first time in decades.
Whilst Hazar Imam continued his official and institutional engagements, the Jamaat proceeded with preparations for their historic mulaqat.
Today is a day of special happiness for me, as this is not only my first visit to Badakhshan, but it is also the first time in many centuries that the Imam of the time of the Ismaili Muslims has had the opportunity to see and to be in the presence of members of the Ismaili Jamaat in Badakhshan and amongst other brothers and sister Muslims. Let me repeat that this is a day of very special happiness.
For the Canadian Jamaat, it was a special time, with Mawlana Hazar Imam's visit to Canada in 1992.
1992 has been a memorable year for the Canadian Jamaat. The Jamaat was privileged to have Mawlana Hazar Imam honor us with a 14-day visit in August, where he met with the Canadian Jamaats across the country. This was a particularly fitting climax to an historic year, which marked not only the silver jubilee of the Aga Khan Foundation, but also the 20th anniversary of major settlement of Ismailis in Canada.
"20 years ago, an African dictator, Idi Amin, broke all norms of civilized behavior when he expelled all the Asians from Uganda because they were Asian. Citizens or not, Sikhs, Hindus, Shia and Sunni Muslims and others, all were stripped of their rights and belongings. Amongst them were many Ismailis. Tonight, 2 decades later, I say thank you, Canada. Thank you for having welcomed so many Ismailis, helped them to rebuild their lives and institutions, and to believe and trust in their future. But let me also say that there is a new president and government in Uganda, and I pay tribute to them for their efforts to rebuild their country and to do justice to those who were victimized by a previous regime. Yes, this is indeed a crucial time for Canada as you continue your search for the best constitutional solution to your future. But let me emphasize that Canada remains for the rest of the world an enviable haven, a haven of peace and of immense natural beauty and wealth. The wealth I speak of is not merely its natural resources, but the peoples of Canada, steeped in your tradition of tolerance, generosity, and compassion, in alleviating human suffering and respect for diversity of thought and culture. I would also like this evening to say how happy I have been with the organization of my visit to Canada. The forewarning I gave the National Council was short, and it's holiday time for many families. So what I have seen today
during the last 13 days that I've been here has been the demonstration of the Canadian Jamaat to organize itself magnificently. And I have a sense that each organization now understands what it should be doing, it goes out and does its work, and it is effective. That's recognized outside the Jamaat and within the Jamaat. And I want to end this evening, these few comments, by saying that from the Prime Minister down, our Jamaat in Canada today is identified, respected, admired, and welcomed. To have achieved that is a magnificent achievement.
Between 1997 and 2007, the world experiences discovery and discord. The first hybrid vehicle comes onto the market. Much of Europe begins to use the euro as a common currency, and the launch of Google transforms the way we access, share, and disseminate information. Mawlana Hazar Imam also celebrates the birth of his fourth child and third son, Prince Ali Muhammad.
The events of 11 September 2001 are seared into our consciousness. The tragedy of the actions turned the attention of the West toward the Muslim world.
In the aftermath of 9/11, Mawlana Hazar Imam speaks with urgency on the need to address misconceptions of Islam in an increasingly divisive world.
Highness, the world is shocked by terror attacks again and again committed by people who claim that they are fighting for Islam. You are an outstanding Muslim leader and you are calling Islam a religion of peace. That is a gross contradiction. Does it mean that Islam has two faces?
No, I don't think so. I think the first thing to keep in mind is that these situations represent a very, very small minority of the Muslim population around the world. Secondly, they are driven essentially by political issues rather than issues of faith. And I think it would be completely wrong to view these situations as being representative of the faith of Islam. The Western world needs to look carefully at what are the forces at play to understand them and to make the difference between faith and issues which have nothing to do with the faith. We as Muslims would be expected to apply the same questions to situations such as Northern Ireland. If I as a Muslim came to you and said, well, what has been happening in Northern Ireland is an equitable representation of the Catholic faith or the Protestant faith, you would look to me and you would say you're uneducated.
I won't say that.
Here in Canada, in a historic interview with Peter Mansbridge, Mawlana Hazar Imam expands on the importance of pluralism and of Canada's role in advancing democratic, peaceful societies. The work of the Aga Khan Trust for Culture is thrust into greater visibility with the stunning transformation of the gardens at Humayun's tomb in New Delhi and the opening of Al-Azhar Park in Cairo.
In our excavations and historical investigations, I constantly have been reminded that we were touching the very foundations of my ancestors, the Fatimids, and the pluralistic history and intellectual profile of this city and this country to which they contributed so profoundly. I am very humbled by the opportunity to return to Cairo, founded over 1,000 years ago by the Fatimid Caliph Al-Mu'iz, to build on that history. 35 generations later, through the work done here by my institutions, it is my prayer that this park will be a continuing contribution to the people of this great city.
Throughout the decade, Mawlana Hazar Imam blesses various Jamaats with Didar, including Portugal, Mozambique, Syria, East Africa, USA, India, Pakistan, and Canada. A particularly unique milestone event for the Imam of the time and the Jamaat was Mawlana Hazar Imam's address to the Jamaat of Afghan Shugnan, assembled across the Panj River from Tajikistan. 11 July 2007 marks the start of our beloved Imam's Golden Jubilee commemoration, during which Mawlana Hazar Imam visits 22 countries, meets with leaders from government and civil society, establishes partnership agreements to strengthen the capacity of the Imamat institutions, and launches a multitude of new initiatives to improve the quality of life of the Jamaat and wider society.
On this most special, auspicious and happy day, Mawlana Hazar Imam, we are here to submit two simple messages from all your Jamaats, Mubarak and Shukrana.
My beloved family, my beloved leaders of the Jamaat, this is a very special day.
to my family, to the ladies of the Jamaat, and to the Jamaat worldwide. I would like to begin this irshad by conveying to the Jamaat worldwide my warmest, my most affectionate, and my best loving blessings. Kamavata, Kamavata, Kamavata.
Mawlana Hazar Imam also blessed the Jamaat with darbars throughout this time.
And when children make a drawing of an elder person, what do? They make a circle. Then they put 2 dots for the eyes. Then if the person is happy, they make the mouth go up. If the person is not happy, they make the mouth go down. I want to see all the mouths in the Jamaat up.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
And I give to each one of you individually, as if I had put my hand on your shoulder. Each one of you individually. My warmest and my most affectionate loving blessings for you and for your families and for your Jamaat.
2007 also marks the beginning of one of the most serious economic declines in modern history. We see the growing popularity of smartphones and engagement with social media, serious threats to the natural environment, unsettling political uncertainty, and an ever-quickening change of pace.
In 2011, a series of protests inspired by the Arab Spring and the resulting clashes with the central Syrian government would result in a civil war that continues to this day.
In response to a more complex world, Mawlana Hazar Imam continues the Imamat's global development activities and institution building with the opening of Ismaili centers in Dubai, Dushanbe, and Toronto. In the Islamic tradition of bringing people together in dialogue and understanding, Mawlana Hazar Imam also opened parks in Zanzibar, Korog, Mali, Kabul, and Toronto. Here in Canada, 3 significant institutions are inaugurated: the delegation of the Ismaili Imamat, the Global Centre for Pluralism in Ottawa, and the Aga Khan Museum in Toronto, the first museum dedicated to Muslim civilizations in North America. Over the course of 60 years, Mawlana Hazar Imam receives more than 70 international honors, awards, and honorary degrees from governments, universities, and civil society organizations. In addition to being the 5th person in history to be made an honorary Canadian citizen, Mawlana Hazar Imam also becomes only the 6th foreign dignitary to address the Canadian Parliament. Numerous accords and partnerships were also signed, perhaps the most historic of which was between the Republic of Portugal and the Ismaili Imamat for the establishment of the global seat of the Ismaili Imamat in Portugal. The agreement marked the first such accord in the Imamat's modern history. At the signing, Mawlana Hazar Imam noted that the agreement provided an enabling framework which would facilitate the work of the Ismaili Imamat and the Imam globally for years to come. And just 5 short years ago, the entire Jamaat was welcomed to celebrate Mawlana Hazar Imam's 80th birthday.
As I think about the past, I reflect where the Jamaat has come from and where it is today and where it is going in the decades ahead. And I think we can conclude that today the Jamaat is a strong community. It is a global community. It is a community with strong institutions, with strong ethics, and is respected around the world. What more could I wish for as the Imam of the time? You could not give me a greater gift than the ability, than the right to say the things that I have just said. So to all the Jamaat leaders, past and present, I say first of all, on my behalf, the Imam of the time, thank you. As we look ahead, the Jamaat is likely to become more and more a global community. But the essence of the Jamaat, the ethics of our faith, the principles which we believe in and which we seek to practice in our lives, are the essence of how our community will stay united, even though it becomes more and more globalized over the years. So I say to the leaders of the Jamaat who are here this evening, that my wish for the decades ahead is that you stand firmly by the principles and the ethics of our faith. Wherever you are, whatever age you are, whatever you do in your lives, it is essentially important to me that the principles of our faith should be respected every day of your lives. This is my hope, and this is my prayer. I say to you this evening that I have had a especially happy 80th birthday. And if I had known it was going to be so wonderful, I would have tried to bring it forward, you know. And I would have tried to multiply it. But in any event, I'm there now, and I want to thank you again for a most wonderful evening and for a particularly beautiful 80th birthday present. I hope that in the decades ahead, you will remember this occasion as one of special happiness, as I do, and I wish you happiness, long life, good health, and unity in your lives and your families. Thank you.
On 11 July 2017, we were once again invited to participate in the homage ceremony to commemorate Mawlana Hazar Imam's Diamond Jubilee.
Ali zikre zabane man
दिलदार अली बुदियार पैगंबर अली गोया अली जोया अली गोया अली जोया अली.
Throughout the Diamond Jubilee period, Mawlana Hazar Imam granted Didar to Jamaats across the world, culminating in a grand celebration in Lisbon with Ismailis from all regions of the world coming together to offer gratitude, connect, and build bridges across global divides.
We live in diversity, plurality, but ek hai hum sare. We live in different cities and countries, but ek hai hum sare. अलग है ज़ुबाने, अलग है लिबास, और एक है जज़्बात. हम एक है, हम साथ साथ. We are together, one जमात. हम एक है, हम साथ साथ. We are together, one जमात. In the sky, we are many rays from the same light. अरे हम गिरी आज़ारी, सीढ़ियाँ चढ़े आसमां के सारी. बादल से बरसे बारिश नूरानी, बढ़े खुशियाँ और एकता हमारी. دست به دست به آنجمن وقتی سحر رنگ نور شبا با چشم دل نور شفق اشکا به گناه ها روان سوز یکی با سینه ها یاد یکی بر هر لبان. Nous chantons, nous dansons, nous brillons comme les étoiles dans le ciel. Nous chantons, nous dansons, nous brillons d'une lumière. Rangeen maro dil thai gayo re, rangeen maro dil thai gayo re. Ek tani dhum par jumi rayo. पहरवेश अलग पण सावरो छेकरा. एक है हम साथ साथ. We are together, one जमात. हम एक है हम साथ साथ. We are together.
During this Jubilee year, I have visited Ismaili communities in many parts of the world. And now, the anniversary events come to a happy culmination here in Portugal.
Together, one जमात. हम एक है, हम साथ साथ. We are together, one जमात.
It is always a personal pleasure for me to return to Portugal. I treasure wonderful memories of earlier visits here, including the gracious hospitality of the last 5 presidents of the Parliament. Portugal is surely an ideal place for me to conclude my Diamond Jubilee anniversary, celebrating my 60th year as Imam of the Shia Ismaili Muslims.
Within 2 years of these momentous celebrations, the world shut down. With the arrival of the SARS coronavirus, our whole way of life changed overnight. However, throughout these turbulent times, Mawlana Hazar Imam has continued to guide us and give us the strength to navigate these unexpected challenges. As Hazar Imam told us almost 65 years ago, with the faith of our forefathers and his guidance, we shall surely overcome any challenges we face. Thank you so much for joining us in reflecting back and celebrating our beloved Mawlana Hazar Imam. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Thank you again, and Salgirah Mubarak!
Your presence and grace come